Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here with my senseis, and we're going to jump right in with Sensei Kelvin Cheong, who's our guest tonight. Sensei, I have a question for you. You have a real broad grappling experience and all that kind of thing, which we're going to get into. But I'm really excited about your Kung Fu for our opening question. Choi Lei Fat is something that Bruce Lee described as the most effective system he's ever seen for multiple attackers. And I want to talk to you about why you think that is. And then I want to go around the horn on how martial arts can be effective for multiple attackers. Sensei Cheong, I think we might have lost you for a moment.
Well, I think, still there?
We are still here. Just so everybody watching knows, our sensei has a bit of a glitch with his computer, so we'll be dealing with this a little like we have, and we'll make it smooth and easy for y'all watching and listening.
Yeah, okay. I think that most of the people who know anything about Kung Fu are usually more familiar with an art like Wing Chun or maybe Wushu. And Wushu is something that people use a lot in film media because it's beautiful. Chole Fut is an art I think most people are a little less familiar with. And Chole Fut is a style of Kung Fu where there's a lot of, we call in Chinese, Cheong or long fist. And it's a very fighting, very, very much a fighting art. You stay on your feet and you use long tools. Your punches are very long. And I think it's useful probably because you keep space, you keep distance, because as you know, once you get crowded in a fight situation, you're in some trouble, especially if you're dealing with multiple attackers. So I think that's the draw in Chole Fut, is that you learn to keep space, use space, so you don't get crowded.
And before we get into any around the horn on that, one of the big knocks against grappling arts is if they go to the ground, you're in a bar, that kind of thing. So where do you go with that concept of grappling as far as being with multiple attackers?
Using grappling, you mean?
Yeah, so you're talking about Chole Fat as having real effect because of the long range aspects. But in terms of grappling, what do you think about that when you're in a bar, someone grabs you? How do you make that effective for multiple attackers?
Well, I think first things first is the nature of grappling. You're used to being pressured in tight situations. So just by training grappling, you release all the anxiety and fear of being crowded by people. So naturally, if you're training a lot of grappling, you're going to be calmer in these close-up situations. And grappling also, as you guys know, teaches you to keep space. It teaches you to get up off the floor. And we probably will discuss a little later, but one of the things that I felt nervous about when I was training striking arts was what happened when I got knocked down, which is what happened one day. So grappling teaches you how to create space, get back on your feet, and use the other tools that are a little bit safer.
Yeah, right on. I love that because a lot of times grapplers think, well, I'm down, let's stay down and let's finish it down. Let me start with you, Sensei Suino, to go around the horn because, I know with Japanese jiu-jitsu, it's got a very different aspect to how that grappling looks. And then also, if there's anything you want to say about any of your arts relating to multiple attackers, Sensei Suino.
Well, every time you get another attacker, in theory, it gets more complicated. And it would be ideal if you were as good as some of the strikers on this call to just take them out at a distance. If that doesn't happen, you've got to expect some chaos. And I like what Sensei Cheong said about being calm in the midst of that. One of the nice things about grappling is you learn that just because someone closes with you, it's not the end of the fight. You don't have to panic. You keep your head about you. And it turns out if you do that a little bit, you can use the chaos and the extra people to your favor. You don't have to assume that just because someone has you in a bear hug and someone else is trying to kick you, that's a bad thing, that the one person can be used against another. And I think it's really all about what's going on up here, as long as you train enough so that you've got the stamina, the balance, the techniques. Ultimately, what it revolves around is how calm and aware you are in the midst of all that chaos.
Right on. Hanshi Legacy, I want to go to you next. I remember really early on in our training when I was a white belt, you talking very specifically about how to deal with multiple attackers. Where do you want to go with that?
It's just a little bit of a different, and I don't know if I'm going to answer this properly, but when you're dealing with one-on-one, you can take him to the ground. And if you're That's why maybe you should know some ground technique. But when you get to two people, it gets more complicated, simply because if you're facing, say, three people, and you go over and you kick this guy away, and then you turn around, face the other people, that guy's going to be pissed. And he's going to look for something to hit you over the head with while you're turning your back on him. And then you've got a new other guy who is after you, you haven't even contended with. So, you know, usually the fights that you get into are just little brawls. Like maybe you get in an argument over a girl with some guy at school, or you're in a bar and you take a guy's seat and you push around. But when multiple people attack you, you have to use that deadly art that you learned, because you have to knock the first guy out, turn to the second guy, knock him or break his leg so he can't get you. Because if they gang up on you, you're in big trouble, especially if they take you to the, there's more than one. So, because it happened to me before, but I'm not going to go through it. There are different situations. It's like Sensei Suino said, most of the time when a guy closes in on you, you can be cool. You can take him to the ground. If there's more than one, you can take him to the ground and keep the guy between you. So you don't want to go to the ground with three guys, you know, so you have to be a more knowledgeable martial artist than, you know, we're acting or asking questions as if someone didn't understand your art.
Thanks, Anchi. Sensei Dauphin, where do you go with the ideas of grappling for multiple attackers, or striking and keeping it long range, or where do you go with that?
So I don't know about Sensei Cheong, but to my knowledge, only Sensei Legacy has been in a confrontation in real life with multiple opponents on this call. But what I would say is the commonalities in all of the arts should be in a multiple attack situation. Use your technique as fast and efficiently as you possibly can, right? So if it's person's coming, there's three people coming, reverse punch, one person goes down if you're lucky, two people jump on you, you go to the ground, you bust somebody's arm, get back on your feet as fast as you can. You know, like all of the arts, I think, teach you to do something, but you need to do it quick with multiple opponents. Like there is no time to actually lay around and look at the score clock, look at the referee, look at that kind of stuff. So you go to the ground, no, break their neck, break their arm, get back on your feet, bust the next guy's jaw, break their leg, go to the ground, like whatever it is you need to do, just do it quick and efficient and go to the next person. You might really find, as Sensei Legacy did, that when you deal with one, the other ones are less willing to engage with you. They're like, okay, I didn't expect that to happen. I'm just going to settle down here for a second.
Well, before we go back to Sensei Cheong, I believe a friend of ours out in Vancouver was surrounded and said, "You'll get me in the end, but the first two you will die," and they backed off. Sensei Cheong, before I go to a follow-up on this concept, is there anything you want to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I agree with everybody with what they said, but I think the opportunity to train, you know, every range of fighting, it also impacts your ability to de-escalate, because you're going to be calmer. You know, you know what it's like to go to the ground or stay up. You don't get as freaked out when someone gets in your face, because you just experienced this before. It's nothing really new. The only thing you really need to focus on, which is what you should always focus on, is truly the awareness, right? Does the guy have three guys beside him? You know, or is it just one person alone? Where are you? These are the kind of things I think generally every martial artist pays attention to anyways when it comes to a self-defense situation. But when it comes to the actual conflict, you know, being able to train all aspects, you're naturally going to be calmer, I feel.
So then my follow-up, and this is for you and Sensei Suino, because as I understand it, this is an area of expertise only you two have. Would it be fair to say that BJJ tends to be a ground art whereas Japanese jiu-jitsu tends to be a battlefield art such that it might go to the ground, but it's ingrained within the kata to basically get back up and face the next person. Am I making that up? We'll start with Sensei Cheong and then we'll go to Sensei Suino.
Oh, sorry. Was it me first?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I was waiting for the answer from Sensei Suino. Yeah, I mean, historically, that's really what it was, devised for. It was battlefield art, and so naturally, the things that we're going to learn is, okay, let's deal with multiple things, and then as it went from Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I still feel a little odd calling it Japanese jiu-jitsu because back when I started, it was just jiu-jitsu, and now we got to differentiate the two between Japanese jiu-jitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Sometimes to me, I feel like it's all the same thing. It's all the same family, just different rules. But that was what Japanese jiu-jitsu was, is for battlefield. And then as it went to judo, and then through judo, it went to Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the rule sets dictated the way people would behave. And now it's just a ground art. But there are plenty of concepts in both judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu that are excellent for self-defense. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important that, and I explain this to my students, the context of how you use it. Which things you use. I'm not going to berimbolo or do any fancy cartwheels for self-defense situation. I don't even really teach that. I don't even try to practice it too much because I think it's a little less practical. But amazing for sport. You build athleticism, and it makes a lot of fun. But when it comes to, if we're talking about strictly self-defense, the way I would teach things I've learned in BJJ or judo is very different, than if it was a pure BJJ class.
Thanks, Sensei. What about you, Sensei Suino? Am I making that up, or is that accurate?
Can you repeat the initial question, please?
Just the idea that BJJ has pretty much become a ground art. Like, let's go to the ground, let's work it out there. Whereas traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu had more of a do what you need on the ground, but get up and move on.
Yes, correct. I mean, strategically, that makes more sense, right? Whether you're street fighting, whether you're a corrections officer, if you're fighting multiple opponents, it's a bad idea to be tied up with one person on the ground. Taking nothing away from BJJ, which is a fantastic and interesting martial art. But the Japanese jiu-jitsu that I studied is about you finish techniques in two ways. You disrupt a joint, or you throw somebody to the floor. Mm-hmm. Everything ends one of those two ways. And there are sacrifice throws. But by and large, neither one of those ends with you on the floor. It ends with the other person on the floor, which right. I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose the high ground if I have to, with multiple opponents, as long as I can. Having said all that, the techniques from each and every one of those martial arts that Sensei Cheong mentioned, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and Jiu-Jitsu, can all serve you in that situation.
Right on. I just want to say quickly two things before we move on. I love that we're talking about a battlefield Japanese art, jiu-jitsu, as it was formed, and the fact that Chale Fak goes back hundreds of years, and we're Shorin-Ryu practitioners, and that goes back hundreds of years. We tend to focus on our guests on this show, but I love the idea that we're all engaged in these hundreds of year olds, unbroken lineages of literal life and death arts, and it's kind of fun. And the other thing I want to point out is that we've got some comments coming in. Justin L, so handsome, and Melissa, you, so excited for this podcast. And these are some new people listening, and it's really fun to have you engaged and active with this. So thanks for that. Ladies and gentlemen, first things first, I want to say that if you're listening on a podcast, we're so glad you're here. Hit that subscribe and like. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe and like, drop those comments, share with your friends. And if you're watching live tonight in the Zoom meeting, then you can comment. And we also want your questions for our guest and for any of the topics we're talking about. And if your questions aren't dreadful, we'll make them part of our show because we want you here as part of our living history. And the other thing I want to say is my co-host tonight are Hanshi Carey Legacy, Sensei Nicholas Suino, and Sensei Randy Dauphin. And aside from the 30 plus years I have with them and the many more years they have with each other, we have a weekend coming up in November known as Capital Conquest. We're all going to be there. We're all going to be training. We're all going to be on the mats all day. We're going to be at that Black Belt Hall of Fame dinner. We're so excited. We've got people competing. It's it's going to be a time, and we hope to see you there. And I just want to say it's one more beautiful thing we all get to do together in person. This show started in COVID, and now that we're in a world where we can congregate, we are. I'm sorry I've got a little bit of echo going on. I'm working with different ways to get rid of it, but thanks for bearing with me. And Sensei Dauphin, I throw it to you.
Thanks so much, Ben. So I always get to do the intro of the guest, which I'm happy about. And this is Sensei Kelvin Cheong. Also Kelvin, same name as my BJJ instructor, also Kelvin. But he currently holds the rank of a second Dan black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which he received under seventh Dan black belt Kyoshi Neil DeGrano. We were just talking about him before we started. He'll be a Capital Conquest. I look forward to meeting him. Sensei Cheong, he's educated in many martial arts. He started in October 1998. His expertise is in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is a large extent of his training, but also in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We talked about it, dry leg fat, Kung Fu as well. He holds currently he holds a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the same as Sean Benson, which you guys can argue about the stripes, but you both have purple belts. Yeah, and he's also a blue belt in judo, which Sensei Suino can shake his head yes or no. I'm not sure what that is, but I never met a martial art I didn't like. So this is something that he said that I like. Martial arts is about problem solving, and he believes that there's no discipline more versatile than jiu-jitsu, which offers the greatest assortment of tools to be used at the right time. I don't know if I agree or disagree, but we can crack that open, and I respect your opinion. One thing I want to say is that Sensei Cheong, he's the founder of Rise MMA Incorporated. It's a social enterprise determined to spread martial arts education and inspire athletes through high quality merchandise. And the one thing I want to say about the merchandise is lots of people say stuff like that, but they just take the funds and they benefit from themselves. And Sensei actually benefits. He donates money back to support things like anti-bullying. I don't know if you met Ben Ryder, who was on our call, but he has a big association that advocates for that, anti-violence and other good causes. I always like to respect education. So Sensei has BAS from York University, and he was raised with the principle in mind that when you have been given the ability to help people, that becomes your responsibility to help people. In order to receive, you must first give, right? So I creeped your Instagram profile. So, and I looked through a bunch of your pictures, and one of the things that I really liked was there was a picture of Scott Taylor's logo, Renshi Taylor's logo. So I keyed in on that one, and then I read your words. And you said, I think Sensei Legacy is really going to like this. Variations are fun to learn, but focus on skill building fundamentals first. Precision, consistency, and accuracy is far more important than spontaneously trying one of the several random variations, because if you land an attack, it doesn't necessarily mean you're good. It just means you got lucky, right? I really like that. You must master the rules before you can break the rules. Sensei Legacy said that to me, like, look, I'm telling you to do this and this and this, and one day you'll just be able to not listen to that and do different things, right? So, but you got to learn the fundamentals first. Listen, I also looked at your TikTok account. I really liked your sodomy chair. There's a sodomy chair there. I really liked it because you're laughing. You have a good sense of humor. Also, some commonality. When I looked at your various accounts, this guy likes, in addition to martial arts, he likes cars. He likes motorcycles. He likes pets. He likes watches. Then he likes German cars, just so you can, he likes German cars. So, yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to cracking this open because I know we're going to like each other a lot.
100%.
Thanks, Sensei Dolphin. So, Sensei Cheong, we're going to jump right in and start talking about you now specifically, which is what was it like for you growing up and what brought you into your first martial arts club?
So, you know, I guess my start is no different from most martial artists. You watch TV, you watch film, and and you see something that you like, and it starts to define who you are. One of those things for me growing up was uh, Bruce Lee movies, Jackie Chan movies, Jet Li movies. I mean, this is growing up in Hong Kong. This is a humongous influence until I moved to Vancouver, and uh, growing up in a Chinese community. Jackie Chan movies, Jet Li movies. This is pretty much all my dad brought home for us to watch, my brother and I. And that's where the love of martial arts began, because you see that, you think, oh, that's freaking cool. You want to do what they do. And, you know, the better the choreography, the more you're intrigued. So growing up, it's something I always wanted to do. Now, you know, like everyone would say, I should have started earlier. Why didn't I start when I was 6? Why didn't I start when I was 9? But it wasn't until I was about 15 when I kind of said, you know what, I need to ask my mom. 14 or 15, I said, Mom, could you take me to a martial arts school? So we opened up the Yellow Pages. This is gonna age me a little bit, right? I don't even know if anyone knows what that is. I don't know who's watching. I don't know who the demographics are. But I don't know if they know what the Yellow Pages are, right? But the Yellow Pages is a phone book, and we just sort of picked the biggest ad on the paper. And the largest ad was a club called the Samurai Club in Richmond Hill, Ontario. And so my mom drove my brother and I there. And this was a multidisciplinary club that had karate, taekwondo, kung fu, jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, and I think kickboxing and maybe a kung fu. It had everything there. So it was an excellent start because I could try everything. They had a membership where you could just pay once and do every single class. And, you know, the only thing I mean, I was in high school. I didn't really have many responsibilities. I was breakdancing, you know, but that's pretty much it. So I had the time at first to go to all these classes. One of my first classes being Shotokan Karate, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Taekwondo, okay, it's a lot more kicks. And then I did my Kung Fu class, and I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. So I had a chance to try everything. But over time, I was forced to narrow down, you know, the scope of my training. You know, my mom would say, look, I can't drive you there 6 days a week. You got to make up your mind. And so I started to narrow down based on, okay, what's practical here? I stopped karate first, not because I didn't like it, and I know I'm in a room full of karateka, so I hope I don't get crapped on for this. But I truly enjoyed it. I did like it. But I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna get some punching from kung fu, and I'll get some kicking from taekwondo, and I'll get some throwing from jiu-jitsu. So I tried to do that for a while. Then I had to cut down, and so the next thing to go was jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu. Now, at the time, my sensei was Sensei Tom Sharkey, and I believe he, just before teaching there, he used to teach with a club, Yamanaka Dojo. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Sensei Yamanaka. But he was teaching out of that dojo, and then he came to my dojo, and I really loved his class. So in my mind, jiu-jitsu was a lot of fun, and I dropped it just because scheduling. So then the next thing I dropped was taekwondo. I had to start shrinking down because I was just going too much, and I stopped taekwondo. But I like that too. There's a lot of cardio. I ended up sticking with kung fu the longest, and so I did trolley fight kung fu for about 7 or 8 years, more or less, I think. And I loved learning it because I love the hand trapping that you see a lot in Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan movies. That's really what got me addicted to it. I know originally I wanted to try Wing Chun, but once I got into trolley fight, I thought, you know what, this is great. There's a lot of similar concepts, but why train the thing that everyone else is training? You know, this is really fun. So trolley fight was something that I enjoyed, and I did for about 8 years until I got taken down, and then I ended up on my back and not really knowing what to do. So this is around the time where I think my friends had just started watching UFC. And in my group of friends, it got really popular, and they're talking about grappling. And I got taken down in a class. And so I thought, maybe I ought to ask Sifu if it's okay if I started learning jiu-jitsu. And And so at that point, I started to transfer into jiu-jitsu class. So when I got into the jiu-jitsu class, it was interesting because my original senseis top black belt took over the class. So I felt like I was kind of in a time warp, and I'd fast forwarded, about a decade. And so that was when Kiyoshi Neil Delgarno became my sensei. And so I've been training with him since.
So let me pause there for a second. I just want to back up to something I love asking all our guests, which is, at what moment along this journey, I mean, you're talking about 6 days a week as a teenager. At what moment did you know, I'm in? This is worth 6 days a week when there's so many other things a teenager could do. And what was it? Like, what was it about that moment that made you go, yeah, I found it?
I think for me, the biggest thing that reeled me into martial arts was the combat science, why things work, why hand trapping works or why it doesn't. And it's more than just me wanting to fight. I was never really a violent person. It wasn't the fight, although the sparring is always very fun, but learning about the human body, how your body can handle situations, especially being a small guy. I'm 5'7", and so all my training partners are bigger than me, and this is even a bigger problem in grappling arts. So I loved being able to learn technique, to use technique to disarm, and it's that body mechanics, that science, that kept me in it forever. I'm just mind blown by that.
I love that. So I'm going to pivot just because we do have some new people watching, and we are encouraging people to be a part of this. So I want to jump right into a question that's, a little lateral and not quite a thread yet. But from Melissa Yu, does martial arts give you a greater responsibility or ethical obligation to intervene in acts of violence or confrontation in public? And why would you answer the way you're answering? And I just want to say I'm excited by this question because we've talked a lot about what level of violence when you have the ability to be a little more controlled with it, but we haven't quite talked about the obligation to enter some version of violence publicly. It's a great question. So let's start with you, Sensei Cheong.
Yeah, that's actually a very, very good question. And it's awesome because it's actually quite complex, I think, right? And this touches on a lot of different aspects of life. It also is probably going to continue to change its answer as technology escalates, weapons are involved. Back in the day, I think that it's pretty easy to just jump into stop a fight, especially when you see it's in high school and it's just two guys roughhousing. But when you're maybe downtown somewhere and there are people with knives or maybe guns, especially the way Toronto's moving, it may be unwise to jump in so quickly. Now, as a martial artist, I always feel that we have to try to do the right thing, especially if we have these abilities and we can intervene. We should do it, but we have to be smart about the situation. We need to read the room fast. And so as much as we should, we have to be smart, and we have a responsibility to our families too, our friends, to just jump in there blindly. Is that right for the ones who are dependent on you? I got a dog at home that I got to make sure I got to feed, let him out. If I die, I can't do that, then he'll die. So this is it's a balance between what's right and what you should do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's jump to you, Sensei Dauphin. Where do you go on the idea of a responsibility to intervene?
Oh man, I guess I would go in the direction of you have to pre-program yourself and think about it before it happens. You can't wait until it happens. If you contemplated it, if you thought about it at least a little bit, then you stand a better chance, right? So I'm not intervening in much unless it's life-threatening for a stranger, right? Like if it's life-threatening, then I'll probably intervene. If it's somebody I care about, I guarantee I'm going to intervene. Like if it's one of you guys or a family member, I'm going to intervene. And then probably if it's somebody I care about, if I have more passion for it, then I'm going to intervene on a more extreme measure than I would if it's somebody else. But I mean, I guess everybody should contemplate that question, Sean, and think about how they would respond, how they would intervene, right? It's a different question. Like, how would you intervene for somebody as opposed to what would you do if somebody attacked you? Those are two different questions, right? And I don't think it's wrong for anybody who says, I wouldn't intervene. I'd just walk away. I don't have the skill set or the ability to do anything. I would dial 911 and I would run in the other direction. That's a perfectly fine response for a lot of people.
Thanks, Sensei. And that's something you and Hanshi have taught me for 30 years is you got to think about it beforehand. You got to imagine it. You got to be like that sprinter who pictures the race 1,000 times before you have it. Hanshi Legacy, where do you go with the obligation or the responsibility to intervene if there's violence or confrontations in public?
Well, humanity, I think, at this point, because a police officer doesn't have that choice. But is he just doing it? Is he just doing it because he gets paid? The next day he has to put his life on the line, and the next day his daughter won't have a dad either, if that happens. So I personally would get involved. You're a martial artist. It's a different level, I believe, and it's about humanity. When you decide to become a martial artist, I got my phone going off here, broke my thought. You've already trained, right? And even if some little girl's getting hurt or something on the side and you turn around and walk away and call the police, won't it be too late? We're lucky. We are lucky in a way to be able to intervene and to help somebody else. And I don't know anybody who went to hell for giving their life for their fellow man. So my opinion is you do your best. You do your best. You can't just leave somebody there, especially as a black belt martial artist, or especially on our levels. There's nothing better to give your life for than another human being.
Thanks, Hanshi.
Okay.
Sensei Suino, where do you go with this?
I don't know that I have a lot to add. I do think it's a personal decision, but I kind of am in Hanshi's camp. We're in a unique position. We're blessed to be able to live an amazing life because of our martial arts. And as long as it makes sense, I think we should intervene. One aspect of that people need to think about, especially here in the U.S., but I'm assuming it's true in Canada too, is the aftermath, the legal aftermath. Right? If you intervene unwisely, that could really have a big detriment to your life in the future. So, that's part of the equation. Certainly, as Randy said, if it's your child or your loved one, you do it and damn the consequences, right? But as the circles start going farther and farther away, there's probably a couple of jackasses in town here that I wouldn't intervene for.
John, I just want to say, if it's somebody, I don't like bullies. So there's some things that I would happily sit in jail for the rest of my life for. And I would be really happy in my cell as I sat there and thought, hey, this was good. I did the right thing. That's okay. I just want to say that. If you're a child abuser or something like that, and don't do it in front of me or anywhere where I'm going to get my hands on you, because I'll happily go to jail for that.
Yeah, I just want to add one thought about that. Thanks, Senseis. I was a lifeguard for years. I did search and rescue for the Canadian Coast Guard. And there's two ways I think about this as a parallel. We would put ourselves in absolute peril to save anybody. But if two people are fighting each other in the pool, i.e. no one's being attacked, you just clear the pool and wait for them to fight it out. And then you save them when one of them's drowning. And that's how I think about it. If two guys are having a confrontation in the street, I'm not, have it out. And then if one of them ends up on the ground and is dying, then I'll go give them some first aid, which to me is very different than someone being attacked. So the question that Melissa sent includes the word confrontation. and some confrontations are consensual, and especially if weapons get involved, have it out, fellas. I will watch. I'll even video and get hits on my TikTok, and then I'll come and help with the wreckage. So I think about that because that was ingrained in me as a lifeguard, is I won't hurt myself for other people fighting, but I will hurt myself to save them from something they're powerless over. Sensei Cheong, this is a really fun question. Look, in our 10 questions, we do get into a version of this, but I really am happy that we have new people chipping in. So here's my question for you, and we're going around the horn on it. This is a fun one. We've all seen the films, but in your professional opinion, who would win in a street fight, Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris, and why?
Oh my God. I don't think there's really a way to answer this question. Oh man. We all know the memes. We all know the Chuck Norris jokes. It's like he's unbeatable, but Bruce Lee's also old-fashioned. It's a coin toss for me there.
Right on. We'll take that as a very diplomatic answer. Hanshi Legacy, Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris, and why?
Again, I would have to agree with Sensei Cheong, is that, everybody looks at that and they say Bruce Lee is the best, but Bruce Lee paid them to lose, right? In the movies, he was the hero. He paid Chuck Norris to lose, Jim Kelly to lose. So nobody really knows. The only references you would have if you looked at world championships or something that effect. And I've looked to see Bruce Lee. I've never found one. He may have won championships, but in China or something, but I have never found it. So I don't know.
Right on. Sensei Dauphin, Chuck or Bruce?
So I'll pile on what Sensei Legacy said. We all know them, but if you didn't know them and you were standing in front of both of them, which one would you fight? Right? Like they're both standing there. And I'm going to say, I think I would choose fighting Bruce Lee instead of Chuck Norris. That's just my opinion, right? Chuck Norris is a little bit bigger. He's a little bit more, to me, intimidating looking, the scruff, the whatever. I'd probably lose either way. Like I'm probably choosing a fight that I'm going to lose either way, but I think I would choose to fight Bruce Lee instead of Chuck Norris if I didn't know anything about them.
Chuck Norris would bite you.
Sensei Suino?
I don't know, man. I think in 1991, I was celebrating the New Year in Hong Kong with some friends of mine, and I got some friends there that are really well connected. And after we were 3 sheets to the wind, my friend said, "Hey, before you go back to Tokyo, I just want to let you know Jackie Chan is looking for some people for his next movie. Are you interested in it?" And I did one of this, either the smartest or the stupidest things in my life. I turned it down because I was very proud of myself as a traditional classical martial artist, and I didn't want to get my ass kicked in a movie by Jackie Chan. So all I know is that if I were in a movie with Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee, I would have lost because both of them would have been the hero of the movie.
Right on. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I am willing to assert fully I think Chuck Norris would win. And the reason is the same reason that I troll people on the internet with this, is he has a real fight record. He's been hit in ways that we've never seen Bruce get hit. And so I 10 out of 10 go with Chuck, and people can argue, and you might be right if you argue, but that's what I'm going with. And I want to jump to one more question for you, Sensei Cheong, and we may or may not go around the horn on this because I don't want to get away from you too much, but I just love these questions coming in from new people. From Fiona Lau, really important question. Most people see progress in martial arts when you earn the next color belt. Have you been discouraged with your progress in the past? And what advice can you give on how to stay motivated and move past the discouragement?
That's also a good question too. One of the things I constantly tell my students to remind them is the belt is simply I think to me, the belt is a bookmark in our life, in our journey, right? And we shouldn't be chasing the belts. Now the belts are there to kind of be a compass and guide us where we are, especially in the early days, and we're going through the Q ranks, the colored belts. It gives us a sense of, okay, what should I know at this point? But the belt isn't your martial arts career. It's the whole entire experience from what to black and beyond, who you train with, what you're doing. A lot of my life, I kind of remember by the color belt I was. You know, I got my dog at a yellow belt. You know, and the girl I'm dating now was at my black belt grading. So it's more of a bookmark in my life. And I don't think you should focus on the color of the belt at all, but it is a great compass to guide you, and so you know where you're at.
Wonderful. I think this is around the horn question. Sensei Dauphin, have you ever been discouraged? And what advice would you give people who are up against that wall?
Well, the question is about the color of the belt, right? Like, so obviously I've been discouraged lots of times. Like, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea of progress. Have you been discouraged by the progress? You're going for a belt. I mean, they're markers, but that's really them setting up the question.
So I guess that I don't know, because I've never been going after a belt. Like, it's the belts have come, but I've never put in my mind, like, and I can say that even now with confidence. Like, I'm a 52-year-old person who started BJJ a year and 4 months ago, and I don't care when I get graded. I just want to train. Like, I just go in and train. I do not. Obviously, it feels really good when your instructor, who you respect and look up to, I don't want to negate that. When your instructor looks at you and says, hey, I think you're this, that feels amazing. That's a really good thing. And everybody should be working towards that and value it when it happens. But outside of that, Sean, like, I mean, honestly, like, I'm in karate, I've been graded one time in the last like 12 years. Right. So like, I mean, I'm not a belt chaser. I don't remember ever thinking when I joined with Sensei Legacy, I gotta be a yellow belt. Like, what do I gotta do to get a yellow belt? I just looked at the people around me and thought, holy shit, these people are so good. How do I get that good? And then one day Sensei Legacy was tapping me on the shoulder going, hey, you got to do this recommendation and you got to get a yellow, you're going to grade for your yellow belt on this day. And then I was scared. I was like, holy shit, like, I got to do this thing. Like, oh, this is nerve wracking. Right. So like, I mean, that's where I take it. I mean, love the training, let the belts come.
Thanks, Sensei. Sensei Suino, you know, you got these belts promoting your progress. Many people look at them that way, but then there's discouragement. So how do you link those ideas, and what do you want to say about people who are discouraged?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in Randy's camp. I've been discouraged in martial arts many times by my inability to master a technique or to beat somebody that I thought I should be able to beat. But I've never been discouraged about my progress in rank because I just don't care. But as an instructor and someone who leads a school, I do care, and I want to see my students progress through the ranks. And I've had many conversations with them about, oh, I'm not going fast enough, Sensei, or, you know, when's my next rank? You know, how do I get there? And I just tell people, I kind of, you know, the same thing. The mindset is get better at the techniques, the rank will follow. Remember why you fell in love with martial arts the first time. And if you don't feel like you're getting what you deserve, then you got to ask yourself if you're really training hard enough and smart enough. There's always room for, as my buddy Big Don Pryor says, the biggest room in the house is a room for self-improvement.
Right on. Thanks, Sensei Suino. Before I go to Hanshi Legacy, because I don't want to have the last word on this, I just want to chip in. I did used to chase belts. I got very excited at the idea that there was a next belt and that there was like this next thing that I could strive for. I grew up an A student in a way that these goals were rewards. And what's flipped for me is that now I chase the knowledge. Like when I get a belt now, I'm like, oh God, now I have to be this thing. And I know I am this thing because my teachers told me, but I better get training harder than I've ever trained in my life, because now I'm seen as something better than I was, even if I know it's just one day further. But the other thing, what advice can you give on how to stay motivated? I just want to say this, and it took me too long to learn this, but I got there. Be honest with your instructor. If I'm honest with my instructor, including when I'm discouraged, including when I'm having I texted Sensei Dauphin the other day, what a great day I was having. And then I went and rolled last night and I got dummied and I was discouraged. And then I went back and trained today. And by being honest with my sensei, they can offer the pathway forward. It's when I think I need to be a certain way for my sensei that they're not getting the honest version of their student. They can probably see it, but it's better if we're aligned in a way that I get honest with myself and with them. Hachi Legacy, what do you think about ranks as progress markers and discouragement and how to help people get past it?
Well, I'll start this way by saying that if you train for 6 months and somebody puts a yellow belt on you, somebody else puts a black belt on you, somebody else puts a red and white belt, you're still the same person. You still only know what you know, right? So, and I think that people may get, there are no yellow belt techniques. There are no orange belt techniques. There are no brown belt techniques. The PNANs or the beginning katas are black belt katas. It's just to mark where you're at in the process of becoming a more skilled martial artist. Actually, I believe that the color belt system was for the sensei. In case he had a lot of different students, like when Funakoshi first went to Japan, so that he would know who's at what level and what to teach them and how to approach them. So anybody who really, besides maybe little people, put stripes on their belts, for a little bit of encouragement as an adult, they shouldn't even consider it. One person, if you have two different martial artists and one is inferior to the other, one would give you a black belt, someone else would give you a green belt. It's for order in the dojo, in my opinion.
Thanks, Hanchi. There's a reason I sometimes like to hear you last, so I can learn too. Sensei Cheong, huge question, one we even talk about in relation to this show, and really excited, and we will definitely go around the horn. This is, I just want to go up. I think it's from Melissa again. Let me just make sure I get this right. Melissa, how would you encourage women who may be interested in trying martial arts? It's predominantly male. We know there's lots of killer women out there, but how would you encourage women to join the martial arts?
Well, I mean, I think that's sort of a two-part question. You could look at it from the point of view of marketing. What can you do to make it glamorous or more? But I think we have to find the root of the question, right? What was the problem in the first place? I know that there's a lot of dojos where it's pretty heavy geared towards men, and I've heard a lot of women tell me that it's pretty intimidating walking to a dojo, and there is about 55 sweaty dudes there, and that's sort of what's deterring them from entering the dojo. But it's not, they were never against the martial art. And so I know one of the ways that some dojos will try to counter this is they'll have all women's class, right? Some way to get them more comfortable into it. And there are a lot of women who go from that and transfer into the regular class once they see that it's not as rough as you think it is, especially if you've built an environment that's very welcoming, right? And you build an environment where ego is completely out the door. There is no ego. People who are bigger, stronger, heavier, they know to be gentle with their partners, especially in really rough arts where you can severely hurt someone, like a grappling art. A 300-pound person on a 100-pound or 90-pound person could do some serious damage even if they didn't intend to. But if you set the culture there, you have to take care of your partners and show that we can train together and coexist without having to destroy your partner every single class. I don't think the class would go on very, very long anyways. And be inclusive of everyone. I don't see a reason why we couldn't all be in the same class. So women's class is one way to sort of segue into that, but I think that you need to set the boundaries and set the culture there at your dojo so that everyone feels comfortable walking through that door and giving it a try.
Thank you. Hanshi, we'll start with you this time. So what do you think is a way to encourage women to join the arts?
I'm not trying to push myself, but I have seminars where I teach all women. You have to make them understand that they have the power and they have the right to martial arts, and they have enough power. Men have more physical power. However, I'll just try to draw a little image here for you. If they're taught how to fight and to be smart about it, and a woman can only put out 25 pounds pressure per square inch, and a man can put out 50, but it only takes 15 to knock them out, it doesn't matter. You have to have a good instructor who can show you what to do. and what advantages you can use as a smaller person. I'm the same size as Cheong. I'm 5'7". I always fought in heavyweight division. I didn't always win, but I did sometimes. You know, you can't huddle around and play with pussycats, and then when it comes time for you to fight a tiger, you won't be able to do it. You need to face, you need to face what you feel will be your opponent. And you need to face it intelligently. You need a good instructor. And like I said, I have seminars that I can convince you that if there was a fight, let's put it this way. Say you were I would ask a woman or a young lady if she would face Sensei Dauphin, and I would say to her, "Do you think you'll win?" Most people would say no. Then I say, if you're standing there and he has a shotgun and you have a 22, who would win? If you can see what I'm trying to get at. It's all on who hits first. And there are different ways of being good fighters. You don't have to have power. You just have to have know-how. I would encourage them to win two dojos and face a tough guy, but make sure you choose a good sensei who knows how to teach you those advantages.
Thanks, Sensei. Sensei Benson his internet dropped, so I'm going to take over for a second. Sensei Suino, how would you handle that question? How would you encourage women to come into the dojo and, be a good martial artist?
Well, for me, it starts at a distance because I'm a marketing guy. I want to make sure that the photos on the website reflect the fact that women can be successful in the art, that there's verbiage on our Facebook and on our website that show that as well. I want to be very welcoming. We have a very clean dojo, a very welcoming dojo. And we started doing this very consciously, like 12 years ago, trying to make it a little bit more comfortable environment for women. And it worked. We're probably 40% female at JMAC now. And that is the real key for us now, is that everything else being in line. I've got women black belts in a lot of programs. And so, Sensei Cheong mentioned that women walk in and they see 55 dudes. Well, women can walk into our judo program and they'll see 26 people on the floor and 10 of them will be women. And that makes it a whole lot easier to get them to try a class, right? So it's end to end for us, everything from the marketing to the fact that we have black belts on the floor.
That's what you're one of those senseis that when they go in there, they can rely on you showing them the right way to be a winner and to survive in the world of what they think is a man's world.
100%.
There are no black, and me, a female is a black belt amongst all human beings, not just a woman black belt.
100%.
And you have that type of school.
I agree with that. There's no women black belts or male black belts. There's just black belts. So let's make that clear. I want to chip on this a little bit. I also want to acknowledge that, men and women, we face different challenges as we would walk down the street every day, right? So for instance, for me, I've never looked at a group of women who maybe were checking me out and thought they were going to come over and hurt me, right? And I just say that honestly, right? Whereas my daughters and other people, the females, sometimes they travel through a different world. So if you're not thinking about that, then you can't acknowledge it when they come into the dojo, right? But I really like what Sensei said about culture. I think the Legacy Shorin-ryu culture, the JMAC culture is one that's inclusivity, and it's inclusive of everybody. Nobody in here cares if you're black, white, male, female, young, old. I mean, we could be talking about people who join when they're 60 or 70. Should they be able to do martial arts? Yeah, 100% they should be able to do martial arts, right? And they might not feel comfortable coming into a room where they're facing somebody who's 25, hyper fit athlete. But if you have a good culture they should feel okay with that. Like that should be good. And the other thing I would say is, what are the goals of the person, whether they're a woman, a man, an older person? Is it physical fitness? Is it just like, or do you actually want to be able to defend yourself? Those are different goals. Like being physically fit and defending yourself are different things. And the last thing I'm going to say is something that people will nod their heads to. Listen, strength and speed are important things. Being strong and being fast are important, but timing beats speed and technique beats strength. And so then, ladies, your timing can beat somebody who's faster than you, and your technique can beat somebody who's stronger than you. That's what I would say to anybody coming into the dojo. And like other people on the call, I'm only 5'7". I'm 155 pounds. When I was at the Crucible recently, I rolled around with somebody who was 6'5" and 276 pounds. And I triangle choked him until he like tapped and wanted to get out. Right. He's definitely stronger than me, bigger than me, but my technique prevailed. So that's my answer. Welcome back, Sean.
Thank you very much. I'm hotspotting right now, which I've never done yet, but actually this looks better than it was before. So hopefully this won't happen again. Yeah, I'm very happy with this. Sensei, I'm sending you what we're about to jump into in case you lose me again. But we went around with everybody on that. We're not omitting anyone.
Nope, we're good.
Awesome. I'm so sorry I missed that topic because right as Hanshi was talking, I was so engaged and dropped out, but I'll rewatch the episode, and I encourage all of you to watch these episodes twice because you do miss some stuff sometimes. Okay, Sensei Cheong, now that I'm back, I'm so excited because it is time for your 10 questions. Are you ready?
Yeah, I guess so.
Great. So we ask every guest to answer as impulsively as they can, but then feel free to expand on your answer as you wish.
Sure.
What is the most? Yeah.
Because I actually dropped out for a moment too. I'm back on, but through my phone. I just want to make sure that this is working.
You're good.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah,
all right, let's
it
go.
Also seems better. So I think you and I are winning for the last half an hour. Sensei.
Could have done this earlier. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
You know what? I'm going to say tapping out. Now I know we're not taught to give up, but actually I say this because it allows you to reset and fight again. But if you're talking about on the street, obviously that's a different answer.
Great. You want to give us a street answer?
Yeah, the street answer would be, for me, I'd be push kick, deep kick, push kick all the way. I want to create space, and I don't think that surviving means you have to fight. I'd rather push kick and get out, go home, go catch my buses, my old sensei used to say.
Thanks, Sensei. Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
Can I actually say Batman? And I'll tell you why. I know he may or may not did. Because jokes aside, he is actually what influenced me to get into it in the first place. One of the things that I loved growing up was superheroes. I think that superheroes is actually a very good thing for people because it gives you something to strive towards, right? Superheroes are really, just a super exaggeration of real human abilities. So jokes, I joke about it, but Batman is, to me, would be the one because he's also originally he was written as a jiu-jitsu master, and that's actually kind of what steered me into jiu-jitsu in the early days. So if I were to talk about influence, even though he's a comic book superhero, that was actually probably my most influential, person.
I love that. We'll talk about that later. Who is the most influential martial artist of all time and why?
Well, I think that the person that inspires you to train martial arts, that whether they're real or not, fictional or not, for me, it was all a lot of television identities. The Bruce Lee we talked about, the Jet Li, the Donnie Yen, Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bloodsport, right? These are the things that got me into it and doing it. So whether or not what I was watching was real, it still got me into the realm of it so that one day I could impact other people's lives. But if we're talking about, current martial artists or fighters, someone like Damian Maia, if you follow, UFC, and that type of fighter spoke to me because it's one of the things that got me intrigued and stuck with jiu-jitsu is that, it's one of the few arts that you can defeat somebody without having to hurt them. So if you choose not to punch, And Damian Maia exemplifies this in UFC. He's able to defeat his opponents taking the least amount of hits and not throwing very many punches or kicks. So for me, that resonated a lot. I love that, and it makes me want to explore that a lot more.
Speaking of exploring a lot more, what excites you most about the next 5 years of your martial arts training?
So I'm going to say it's actually seeing where my students take it. I'm actually more excited about what my impact has on their lives, and not just as them hopefully all becoming black belts, but it's what they do with their lives. How does it impact their life and make their lives better? What do they do with the things that I try to teach them to become better people, and how they can make their world better? I think this is what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Right on. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
Well, if I make it up there, like Scott said, because I'm a friend of Scott and I risk luck too. But if I make it there, I just want him to let me know that my friends and family are doing okay, and I don't have to worry. And if I don't die before my dog, I'd like him to tell me where my dog is, so I can go see him. Yeah, but he's still alive, so we'll see who goes first.
Right on. This came up actually in one of the questions that someone asked, so they'll be happy that this is part of our 10 questions. Do you have a favorite film or television martial artist, whether the actor themselves is a martial artist or not?
Enter the Dragon. That film, I think, was one of the biggest films in my mind as a kid. That really did it for me. Bloodsport, I think Bloodsport was one that I probably shouldn't have been watching at the age that I watched it at. Jean-Claude Van Damme. I mean, those movies are to me, they're strong in my mind. Now, I might get a lot of crap for this, but Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I know most of the world hated that film and they said it was really crap. But the fight scene at the end with the lightsabers, I mean, that choreography was amazing. Till this day, I wish I could, make some time to learn some sword type martial arts. Sensei Suino, I'd love to learn from him someday. But these movies are ones that for sure resonated.
Right on. You really just unlocked a question we've never touched on for after the 10 questions. I'm really liking where you're taking some of our thinking. Do you have a martial artist, living or dead, in all of recorded history who you'd want to train with the most?
You know what? For the same reason as before, someone like Damian Maia, he's a BJJ black belt, high level, who I'd love to do a seminar with him and learn from him. And that's because the way he uses it, especially in UFC, he uses the jiu-jitsu like the way I would want to disarm somebody without having to destroy them with punches. I think that it speaks to the way I am. If I can de-escalate or handle a problem without having to destroy my opponent, that's the way I'd want to live. That's the way I'd want to do it. So someone like Damian Maia is someone I'd love to learn from one day.
Right on. He's a stud on the mats. If everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit you've gotten from martial arts, whether they train or not, what benefit would they be getting?
I think that aside from the inherent benefits that martial arts would provide to you, the fitness and confidence, I think that, and I don't know if people talk about this enough, but the sense of family and community that you get from martial arts, because you look at it as a solo activity, sport or art or lifestyle, but it's really very much a team activity. The people you train with, you need them to get better. So the bonds you build training with the people that you train with, the bonds you build with your sensei, with your students, with your teammates, I think that is it's something that everyone needs to know about, to have that kind of support, not just on the tatami, but outside of the dojo. It goes way beyond just going there, getting your ass kicked by each other, leaving. One of my favorite things I hear about is when I see my students connecting with each other, hanging out outside of the dojo. I love that because it just shows how strong community is in martial arts. It's not an individual activity.
Right on. Sensei mentioned you're into German cars. I'm a big Porsche guy, and I always say the best thing about Porsches are the people,
Yeah,
the community, and we
that's
on
right.
here are family, and we're not here to
Yeah.
evaluate your answers, but I love that. So our last two questions come as a pair. What is your greatest achievement, and what is your greatest regret?
Well, I would say my greatest achievements are the company I've kept, the community I've built, the people I keep around me. And that goes beyond the martial arts, of course. That includes my family and my friends. I mean, they're you're the sum of your circle or your people, right? So being able to build this a group and hang around all the time, I'm proud of them. I'm very proud of them, and I'm very fortunate that I get to hang around this type of people. And I guess in terms of my biggest regrets, I mean, one part of me says I don't really have any regrets. Aside from the daily regrets, like jumping on the 401 before you go to the bathroom, like it
that's a real regret.
Yeah, I got those. Sure, we got those regrets, but I, other than that, of all the good and bad in my life, I don't have regrets, because any little thing I think, if changed in the past, wouldn't bring me to where we are today. I wouldn't get a chance to hang out with you guys and have a conversation and meet you guys in the future at Capital Conquest. So I'm very, very pleased with the way things have gone, good or bad. I don't want to change a single thing. So I don't think I have any regrets.
Right on. Thanks for those 10 questions, Sensei. Okay, one thing I want to talk about Rise, and I want you to have some real time with that, but you've really prompted a thought in my head, and it's something we've touched on, but the way you talk about Batman, or the way you talk about a lightsaber fight in Phantom Menace, I think you've really opened up something really important, which is the fantasy aspect of martial arts. These movies like Enter the Dragon, that's fantasy, but you're going even further with it, because we know Bruce Lee's a real guy and he has those capabilities, but there's no real Batman. There's no real lightsabers. But I think there's something to the stimulation that provides and the imagination. So my question for you, and then we'll go around the horn, is how important and what is the limit of that fantasy and imagination? I mean, one of my students, Alden, who everybody knows, he loves the anime. I mean, it will motivate him in ways that I've never been motivated by that. And so what do you think? What's the importance and the limit of the fantasy and imagination aspect beyond what a real human can do?
I think that, bearing that we don't stretch too far and take the fantasy aspect into how we get out of a dangerous situation. I mean, obviously there are limits, but in terms of living your life and having a moral compass, whether it's driven by someone real or someone that's fantasy, like a superhero, I think it's super important. If this is what motivates you to push you forward to do good things, then I don't think it really matters what it is that does that. That's why for me, growing up, something like Batman was a driving force, because he does business by day and fights by night, and that's kind of my life now. But he always ends up doing the right thing. Whether it was a little bit more on the violent side, he teaches you that you need to do right, do good. And so for me, I encourage that, if it's an anime hero that you have that pushes you, if it's Bruce Lee, let the fantasy push you to achieve things that you might not normally think you could. So I'm a full supporter of having that kind of motivation.
Right on. Let's go to you next, Sensei Suino. What's the importance and limit of the fantasy and imaginative aspects around all this?
Yeah, well, so many of us can point to a movie that inspired us, and it didn't get me started in martial arts because I started very young, but the Octagon, Chuck Norris movie, The Octagon, was very inspirational to me, and really got me extra motivated in karate. And as have all the notable martial arts movies. I'm not a big fan of cartoons or anime, but I do like martial arts movies, and I don't even mind like the wire fu stuff. I think that's cool. It's fun. It's cool to feel it viscerally and go, man, if I could only do that, how cool would that be? But as you say, the limits are important. Knowing that a lot of that stuff is fantasy, and then also making sure that your martial art is grounded in reality. We talk about pressure testing all the time. I don't want to go down that road, but there's a lot of martial arts or types of martial arts training that I think create even more fantasy in people's minds, and that's dangerous, both from the point of view of just understanding reality in general, but also from self-defense. If you stay in the fantasy world too long, your martial art is not going to be there for you when you need it.
Thanks, Sensei. What about you, Hanshi Legacy? How important is the fantasy and imagination, and what's the limit?
Well, personally, I think it's very important, because what you're trying to do is reach the young mind and make them decide like what's good and what's bad, and to try to stay on the good side of things. Because, you know, your habits are set into you when you're really young, and you follow them through. So the cartoons, but in the background, or in the makeup of it all, it's good versus bad. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think that those are good for children, because they're attracted to that kind of thing. But in the background, there's still a good lesson.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Dauphin?
When Sensei Cheong started talking about this stuff, I was like, thought of Step Brothers, and I was like, did we just become best friends? Should we go to the garage and do karate? Right? Because for me, like, I love all that stuff. Like, I love Lord of the Rings. I love Star Wars. I love The Matrix. And the commonality for the Equalizer, the last movie I went to was Equalizer 3. And so kind of the commonality for all of them for me is, if it's Star Wars, is like Qui-Gon, right? Like Qui-Gon, or Neo and Morpheus, or Trinity, or they're super calm in the face of adversity. They already know they have the situation handled when they walk into a room, when they walk into the battle. They already know they're in the top 1%. And it allows them to be really calm. And I think that imagination, if you can feed into that, and that motivates you to get into that top 1%, then in everyday life, you find yourself sometimes in that place where you're the calm one. Everybody else is freaking around and bouncing off the walls, but your training has allowed you to be like calm. And now, you're the Morpheus today, or, you're the Denzel Washington in The Equalizer, just like looking at everything, saying like, don't bring it here. If I got to come over there, you're going to regret it. So I love all that stuff. And the last thing I would say is, when I ask a lot of kids who come in here, why do you want to do martial arts? It's like 50% of them, boys and girls, that mention a superhero. I want to be Spider-Man. I want to be Batman. I want to be Wonder Woman. I want to be these things. And I'm like, you're going to get that here. You're going to become Wonder Woman. You're going to become Spider-Man. Like, you're going to have powers that other people don't have. Let's get in here and get to work. So I like it. That's why it's created, because we all want to be those things, right?
Thanks, Sensei. I just want to chip in a bit too. Sensei Cheong, you addressed what I consider to be the limit, which is if you think it'll work when it won't. And so I won't touch on that. But there's two. It's funny because literally today I was meditating on Kylo Ren, who's my favorite character in all of the Star Wars universe. And I was meditating, and Hanshi, you touched on it, good versus evil. I know what it's like, and I'm about to get emotional, to have something inside you that only wants the dark side and only wants the benefit you perceive it giving you. And I know that struggle so intimately. I don't consider it a daily struggle, but I consider it a daily awareness. And I was literally meditating on it today, and it's what made me go train. Literally, Kylo Ren made me go train today. And Hanshi Legacy, you put in my hands once. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, I have your signature in it. And there's, the seagulls that can literally disappear and appear on the other cliff in that book. And no word of a lie, I believe that's possible. And I believe that the path described in that book is possible, and I believe I'm on it. Whether I'll ever get there or not, I don't know. But that fantasy drives me every day to walk a Zen path, that book, that thinking. And that keeps me from maybe making other choices. And I just want to say how without the fantasy aspect of this, I mean, there's no fantasy when I'm getting drilled in the head, but the fantasy of what I then go imagine to bring me back the next day is fundamental to this thing. So yeah, thanks for bringing up that truly fantasy aspect. We know these movies are fake, but to bring up fake characters in that real way this is a real fun chat. Sensei Cheong, let's come back to you. Tell us everything about Rise, R-I-Z-E.
So Rise is a brand I started maybe about 7 years ago, around 2015, 2016, 2017, roughly that time. And the reason I started Rise is because I wanted a way to motivate people to do good. I wanted to spread martial arts because I believe that it's something good for the entire planet. You know, we have a lot of battles between which is the best art, you know, and it's, oh, okay, karate's better than taekwondo and kung fu's better than kickboxing. And I think that the battle really shouldn't be with each other, but it should be all of us getting the rest of the world to train and better themselves. And I feel there are so many benefits, you know, some of which we talked about already. But I think I inherently believe martial arts is great for everybody. It'll make you calmer. You're going to build a sense of community. I think it's going to solve, you know, half the problems in the world. If everyone trained, it's better. So I wanted to build a brand. And the reason I wanted to build a brand is because I feel as a person, you know, I can only spread so many messages. I can only teach so many people, and I'll die one day. But as a brand, it's a symbol that I hope if I build it will be forever. And so you can send a message better that way without necessarily putting a face to it. So the goal was to do that and also to do good. With the brand producing merchandise, I'm able to generate some revenue that allows me to reinvest in women's self-defense seminars. And I say women's self-defense seminars because guys don't seem to sign up. They seem to think they don't need it. So you know, we get a lot of women.
They see red.
Yeah,
that's
they're
all
like,
the
okay,
defense
I can fight. You know,
yeah.
Most dudes are like, yo, I don't need you do jujitsu. I can fight you. But and they don't seem to think they need it. So we've been more successful having women's self-defense seminars, and I'm lucky and proud to this day. We've hosted about 150 plus women who've come to maybe 6 or 7 seminars so far over the last 5 years. And so that's one of the things we want to do, because another way to make the world better, give people the tools, you know, remove the barriers of self-defense or a way into martial arts. So Rise has helped us do that. And I hope that, you know, through merchandise sales or you know, other means of people wanting to support, we can connect to more people, make you know, the world better. And I think it's very important that we remember that, because the why, I think you guys have talked about it before, some of your other guests in the previous shows. There's an author, Simon Sinek. He wrote a book, Start With Why. It, for me, was a very, very important book, reading that one. It gave me light on how to navigate my own life and to have purpose in what you do. So Rise is one of those things that gave me a purpose. Why do I teach? Why do I produce this merchandise? Even on the labels of our product, it tells you why you do it. You know, why are you supporting this brand? Because we host seminars, we try to make the world better, we spread the martial arts, to give the athlete or the user another reason if they've forgotten why they got into martial arts in the first place. So Rise is a symbol, you know, a reflection of doing good as a martial artist. Like Hanshi Legacy spoke about earlier, it's our duty to do something in the event there's some sort of altercation. And if you can stop it, you should stop it. We have to. So this is, you know, the reason I started Rise. And I hope that people see Rise as not my brand, but it's everyone's brand. You know, those who wear it, like Renshi Scott Taylor, I'm very happy to have him, you know, wearing the product all the time and sharing the same message. But this is why it's important to me. And I hope people get a chance to take a look at it. It's never been about the money, but it's about the message, you know, what it does for you.
That's great. So we just threw up in the link where to look at that, but don't be shy. Tell us about the merchandise. Tell us why you love it, and tell us where people can find it.
Yeah. So we started off with producing jiu-jitsu gis. That's where we got to start. And that's obviously because that's where I have the most experience using jiu-jitsu gis. I've had probably about 30 or so different gis before I actually started the brand. And when I started, I you know, pretty much took all my favorite aspects of a gi and built this gi so that it would be a gi of a little bit higher quality, you know, I know that people will spend a little bit more money on it. You know, why buy a $200 gi when you can spend $130 on Amazon? I understand there's a lot cheaper gis, but we wanted the product to be of quality, you know, heavier weight with more features, because I was worried if I went, you know, cost leadership approach, produce the cheapest gi possible, and it would tear the message, the importance of what Rise means. So we started with gis, and then it's been a very interesting but also challenging experience with the brand as a startup right before a pandemic. It's you know, it's a humongous learning experience, but through pandemic, it's allowed us to pivot, focus on a little bit more things like rash guards, more shirts. We've started making kickboxing, Muay Thai gloves, and we're starting to get into things like fight shorts and Thai pads and focus mitts, so that people can train at home. You know, allow for not just grappling but striking as well. So we'd like to expand into more of an everyday fitness at some point, but we started with gis, and I'm very proud of the product. I hope, you know, you guys who are grapplers give it a try someday. But that's pretty much what we're doing. And the website is risemma.com. If you guys have a chance to take a look, please, I appreciate that. But the message is, to me, the most important thing.
So I did just look while you were talking. You're telling me that I can go to Rise, R-I-Z-E, MMA.com, for you Americans, R-I-Z-E, MMA.com, and I can buy a gi from you, and I can buy 6-ounce hand protection from you, and that profit goes to you then making sure that people get self-defense courses who might not otherwise.
Yeah, our goal is with these sales that we're able to host. And, you know, the great thing is about this whole martial arts journey, especially with the Rise brand, it's allowed me to connect with a lot of people who said, hey, maybe you can do a self-defense seminar at my dojo, or we can work together so I can host it, you know, along with the power of Rise and the Rise brand. And so, yes, the whole idea of Rise is I want to be able to have more events and meet more people.
Amazing. Well, I'll message you after, but I'll be wearing one of your gis at Capital Conquest. Amazing. Because I could use a new gi, and I want to support what you're trying to do with that. Sensei Dauphin, any thoughts? I see you thinking there.
I want to know, when we get to Capital Conquest, I want to show you some hand gear. And if you can start creating this hand gear, I'll buy it from you forever, because everybody so I like, you know, puffy hand gear that has no thumb. So sure, you can still grab and pull. But I want the hand gear to be puffy enough that when I'm hitting my students, they're not dying. Right. So
they want it too. They want it puffy too.
Yeah.
Every time, so Revo made some, and then every time I fall in love with Karate Combat, I bought Karate Combat gloves. Since Suino's nodding, because I keep telling him, hey, buy this glove, and then he buys it. It's him. He's the jinx. Every time he buys it, they stop manufacturing it. And then I'm like, for the love of God, I got to go find another one now. So if you could just start manufacturing it, we'll buy it from you forever.
Okay, we'll chat for sure.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
That's fantastic. The last word is going to go to you. We're going to get to around the horn wind up, but is there anything else we haven't touched on in your story that you want to get to real quick?
Sorry, in my life story.
Yes, you, Sensei.
Yeah, so I guess where we left off, after getting through getting my black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, I moved away, went to Hong Kong, and I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I entered that world, and I started deviating now from a traditional martial art into a sport combat martial art. And so I started that around 2014, just to fast track it. Then it's been about, I guess, 9 years now. I started judo about 6 years ago, and one of the things that I've learned is that I don't think it really matters what you train, just train. Because no matter where you go, and I've been fortunate to travel the world and train everywhere, a number of places in Asia and US and UK, wherever I can across Canada, I meet the best people. And it didn't really matter what art it was, whether I did a BJJ class or a boxing class, I met the greatest people, and I encourage everybody. It doesn't matter what you do, go train something. You're going to meet an amazing group of people waiting for you, but you just got to get up and do it.
I love that. And I don't want to tag on your thought too much, but one thing we talk about a lot on the show is if you're in a town that has one martial art that everyone thinks is the best, but the teacher's not great, and then you've got another one that people poo-poo a little, but the teacher's fantastic, we tend to say, go with that great teacher. Go with the great teacher. You'll stay in the martial arts a lot longer. And one day you may pivot martial arts, or you may make that martial art better. Who knows? But I hope you don't mind. I feel like I'm amplifying what you're saying, but it's something we've talked about a lot on this show, and it's very in line. Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is thank you to everybody who runs this show behind the scenes. And I want to just pull up the names so I don't get them wrong. I normally have this at home. Robert Shlumsky, Justin Shea, Andre Sedashev, Alden Adair, Jesse Vlevital, Sidney Dauphin, Josh Kitchens, Cristiano Landolt, Daniel J. Holland, Drita Gugliani, and Stavros Stavroulias, who's with us tonight. And I just want to say thank you to all of them. We don't have a show without them. The other thing I want to say is I'm really excited. Next week, we have a micro short, which is about Yamaguchi Sensei. And the week after, we're doing a host chat. Sensei Suino, why don't you tell us why it's a special host chat?
Well, the location of the host chat shouldn't matter, but in this case, it will. Randy and I are going to be in Tokyo, and we're going to try to find a cool location in the midst of all the training opportunities so we can get on the horn and chat about how that's going. I suspect a lot of the conversation will be, what's it like training in Tokyo? You know, what's going on over there, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So all our host chat, I mean, there's some of our favorite episodes, but if I were a viewer, I would not want to miss this one. There's going to be a flavor to it that we don't have and we won't replicate for a while. So we look forward to you on that call. So Sensei Cheong, what we do when we go around the horn is we start with Hanshi Legacy and we say a little bit about our time with you. And then the last word will go to you before we say goodnight. Hanshi Legacy, what do you want to say about our chat tonight?
That was a great chat. I just want to let you know that I have a 3-foot statue type toy of Batman downstairs, right? And I don't know what, I bought it for my grandson and I couldn't give it to him, so I just kept it. Okay, you come at really good, friendly angles in martial arts that are on the lighter side and promote peace, as opposed to sometimes we have to use violence. But there are other ways. And I appreciate that myself, whether other people did or not. And I really appreciate you coming on to our show because they give us a lot of different angle, a different light rather than an angle on martial arts. And I also will be at Capital Conquest, and I hope to meet you there. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Hanshi Legacy. Sensei Suino.
And I love this. I echo what Hanshi said about the friendly vibe. It's really been wonderful speaking with you. You know, when I'm out hiking in the mountains, my motto is always get out of the tent. And when I'm living my life, the motto is always go to the dojo. And I think you've kind of done that. You've lived that way, right? Once you started martial arts, you keep going to the dojo. You started your martial arts brand. You've been around the world. You've trained, you know, in Canada and Europe and in Hong Kong. Awesome life story. I will say from out here on the foothills of senility, you're still a young man. You have many, many more years to go. And I just can't wait to see how it goes for you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
I read a lot of notes, Sensei Cheong. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in November as well. I liked when you talked about maintaining the range with Kung Fu, that was, you know, you like maintaining the range. I think that's something people should think about. I also liked what right off the top, you said, you found it hard to call it Japanese jiu-jitsu, right? Isn't it just jiu-jitsu, right? Like, right. Isn't it just jiu-jitsu? Isn't it just karate? Isn't it just judo? Like, why do we got to brand it something different, right? Like, put other words because it's just jiu-jitsu. So I like that. I didn't know you were born in Hong Kong, but I'm really happy you're a Canadian now. So Hong Kong's loss, our gain. So that is great. I liked when you talked about martial arts. We learned a lot of things from you that a lot of people didn't talk about, but martial arts teaching you about your own body, the human body, right? Like you mentioned that. I think that's a really big benefit that a lot of people don't even realize they're getting, right? I liked when you said that the belt colors are just bookmarks in your life, right? That's very true. The most effective move, tapping out. Yeah, I've learned that in the last year for sure, that it's just really good to just tap out and get back on your knee and start again. But also, again, creating space, right? Create some space. I love the superhero talk, right? Like, I like Batman. I'll just tell you, I like him because he's the smartest of the superheroes. He's the most intelligent one. He has the biggest brain. And Sensei Legacy always said to me, I'll take the smartest person over the most physically fit person every day. I want the smartest martial artist, and Batman's smart. And my one little student, Ohm, who just got his yellow belt, he wants to be Batman. So I'm going to keep pushing that forward. Yeah. You know, defeat somebody without hurting them. I think that's something, like, everybody is talking about your peace aspect of martial arts. Yeah, I think that's awesome. The next 5 years, you said where your students were going to go with it. And lots of people have said that. But you said something else that nobody else said, which was, how is my teaching going to influence them over the next 5 years? I think that's a really good thing. We all should think about that. How is our teaching going to influence people over the next 5 years? Yeah. Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee, Star Wars, Phantom Menace. Love that shit, man. We could just come here and have a marathon on the TV, or just lay here with a whole bunch of students and watch this shit and have a good time. You know, you talked about the greatest benefit, and nobody talked about it before, but it's 100% true. It really resonated with me, was community, right? Martial arts gave me a community and a history and a lineage that I never had before I joined martial arts. And I don't think I would have ever gotten had I not joined martial arts. So, yeah. And then you said your greatest achievement is the company that you keep. That's another great thing for people to think about, right? Like, just hang around with awesome people. Like this podcast, like every Thursday, we just do this awesome podcast with these awesome people. Hang around with awesome people, and you have a better chance of being awesome if you do that. So I can't wait to see you in November. Please give me a hug from the front. Don't take my back. And yeah, I look forward to shaking your hand and meeting you in person, live and in person. So thank you for coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sensei Dauphin. Sensei Cheong, Sensei Dauphin is my teacher, best friend, and brother. So unshockingly, I wrote down many of the same things, but I do just want to touch on them a little bit. First off, on our Punch Kick Choke Chat Instagram, which if you're not following everybody, go find that. Sensei Suino commented, I love it when I know almost nothing about one of our guests. The chat will be packed with cool new knowledge. And Hanchi touched on that. This second 100 guests we've been having, I call it, it's been so illuminating because we're getting new perspectives, new ways of thinking, new just energies. And it's absolutely wonderful. And you're squarely in the center of why the second 100 episodes are going so well. Tapping, yes. And you know, the way I thought about it is, I learn by losing. And sometimes I have to admit that one didn't go my way. And I always think about it like a video game. I can go maybe, let's start over. I'll put a new quarter in so that I can go maybe 1 inch further and then lose and learn again. And I think about it that way a lot. Family, community. I mean, that's just what this is for me. And I found my chosen tribe here. It's funny because my favorite superhero is Batman too. I grew up on the Adam West ones, which I still to this day love. I grew up on the Michael Keaton, the Joker. So it's deeply part of my growing up. But my favorite thing about him is that he isn't superhuman and he's wealthy. And I literally heard in class tonight, comfort is the enemy of happy. And I'm going to be meditating on that because comfort is something I have a lot of. And it's the thing that often keeps me from the deeper happiness that getting out of the tent, Sensei Suino. And Batman had the most comfortable freaking millionaire, billionaire lifestyle you could ask for. But he said, yeah, but that's not the point. And that's why he's my fave. So that's all I have to say because I get to contribute a lot during the show more than the others. But I do want to say that I will be contacting you tonight to ask you about geese, whether you want to ship me one or I come find you. Are you in Toronto?
I am North York.
Oh, I'm going to come pick one up from you in person in the next few weeks before Capital Conquest. Last word goes to you. What do you want to say before we say goodnight?
So before I send my heartfelt thanks to all you guys, there was 2 points I just wanted to quickly touch upon that you guys just recapped. And I want to bring it up because I think it's very important. Why is community so important? And I feel that, especially in the last set of tragedies that have happened in Toronto, at least I can relate to that because I'm here. For example, things like that van driver incident that plowed a bunch of people down on Yonge and Shepherd. Things like that, these tragedies, I feel, and it makes me wonder, it begs the question, if these kind of people had the support from people, the kind of support we have as martial artists with each other, would that still happen? If they had people to be there and support them for whatever it was they're going through. I feel that community is such an important thing, and that's why it's such an important aspect to let people know of the martial arts. You're gonna walk into a new family. I think I need to make sure that people know that, those who are listening, and those who are listening, to spread it to other people, that come try martial arts. You're gonna meet some really good people, especially if we have a group of amazing, good senseis like you guys teaching the new generation. So this is why community is very, very important. And so thanks for recapping that. And the second thing was about the tapping thing, right? Is if someone were to tell you that you need to fail an X amount of times before you can succeed, why wouldn't you want to fail sooner? Why wouldn't you want to tap sooner? You could reset and then go back to it, like the example, like Thomas Edison coming up with the light bulb, right? We're not going to have the debate about Nikola Tesla, but people will say he said he found 1,000 ways not to make the light bulb before he did, right? So he had to fail X amount of times before he could succeed. So don't be afraid to fail more, fail quickly, so that you can bounce back. And so I just wanted to recap that it's important that you accept defeat quickly so you can try again. And but other than that, I'd really like to thank all of you guys. It's been amazing. Like I said before, guys like Renshi Scott Taylor, who've been on your show before, they speak so highly of you guys. And I've watched and listened to a number of your casts, and I felt like, oh man, I'm hanging with a room full of giants here. The combined experience you guys all have is astounding. It's astonishing. So to be able to get to chat with you guys, it's a real honor. And I really hope to see you guys soon. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing your friends and your fans who added to our questions. And thanks everybody for watching on any of the platforms. We're so glad you're here. Good night. And thank you, senseis.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sensei.
Thank you so much.